fantastical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL Network.
100 times.
Thank you, Michael Bolton, for introducing us for our 100th episode here at the SNL Network. Yes, that is right. We have hit 100 podcasts, ladies and gentlemen. When I started this in late September of 2020, I was like, let's do this. Let's talk about SNL and see how it goes. And I did not think we would get to 100 episodes. And I'm so thrilled and thankful for all of our listeners, all of our podcasters, all of our patrons for getting us to 100 podcasts. So thank you all. Tonight we have a very, very special show with some special guests potentially popping in along the way. So if you're watching us live, I'm sure you will enjoy the surprises we have for you in this show. But we're not gonna, avoid talking about Ariana DeBose and Bleachers on Saturday Night Live, which was our most recent episode. So we are gonna get into that. And for this episode, we brought in two of our original podcasters, the people who joined us from the beginning. We're right here all the way from 1 to 100. Joining us first is the great Bill Kenney. Bill, how are you?
I'm doing well, John. Congrats on 100. It's a pretty big milestone, and looking forward to the next 100.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm just thrilled to do this with every single one of our podcasters who join us all the time. So thanks, Bill. And joining us as well is, one of the 100 Andrews that joins us on the SNL Network. Haskell, how are you?
One for every episode. I'm doing good. Honored to be here for number 100. I was going to ask if you had a musical number prepared, but looks like with the help of Lonely Island, you had something. So again, congrats on 100. Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. Very on brand. So looking forward to getting into the rest of our discussions for the night. So we are going to have some fun tonight. We're going to talk through everything we saw from Ariana DeBose and the second half of Saturday Night Live. We'll get into those sketches. So if you are watching us live in the chat on this Monday evening, let us know your thoughts as we get through the show. And we will hear from some special guests coming in soon. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about Ariana DeBose and musical guest, not Roddy Ricch, Bleachers, who ended up replacing Roddy Ricch earlier last week. So this was kind of fun. I mean, we got to see something very different. We've talked a lot on the SNL Network about, the lack of female hosts in season 47, and we were really looking forward to getting different people in there. We got somebody from a theater background, Ariana DeBose, coming in, from the West Side Story. So, Bill, let me ask you, when you saw the announcement for Ariana DeBose, were you excited to see her on the show?
I was very excited, not only because I enjoyed her so much in Schmigadoon, but for a show that's based in Manhattan in Broadway District. This is really only the third time we've had somebody that's basically known for their Broadway background. Obviously, a lot of actors have been on Broadway at some point or another, but other than Alan Cumming and Lin-Manuel Miranda, this is pretty much the third time in 47 years that we've had this. And she's charming. She was just as great as advertised. And we got a lot of singing, which I'm always a fan of as well.
Yes. And the most fascinating thing for me, Haskell, was I'm sort of in disbelief that they haven't done something like this sooner for this generation of the cast. We talk all the time about how these are all theater kids that they brought in for this, forever cast that's been there for the last 10 years. Very shocking that this is the first time we get to see somebody from Broadway really interacting with them, I guess, except for Lin-Manuel a few years ago.
Yeah, definitely. Like they're like you said, like I'm surprised it hasn't happened before. I'm surprised it didn't. I thought maybe the early part of this season would have seen something more like this because of, sort of the support Broadway reopening. We saw Jimmy Fallon do a big thing when he brought in, current and former Broadway stars. So I thought this kind of would have went a little earlier or happened a little bit earlier, but I was not really familiar. This was one of my, and I feel like I'm still young enough where this doesn't happen a lot, but this was one of my who moments. I've never seen that name before. The name didn't pop. I did see her in Schmigadoon. So once I realized who that was, I was kind of excited. And if they're going to make a connection with somebody who's known for Broadway, I think maybe they made a good choice. Like, I think she definitely was game for a lot of stuff. So excited to kind of get into the nuts and bolts of it all.
Yes, and I do want to point out in the chat is also being mentioning Nathan Lane as well. So that definitely somebody with a Broadway background. But
I thought of him as well. I think that he was known for movies at the point, but that is a fair point.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, so it was cool to get to see Ariana, and she definitely, we saw in the monologue, she definitely like brought her Broadway stuff to the stage, and I was really curious, what we were going to get to see with the cast blending in with Ariana. But before we start to get into the episodes, get into the sketches, I do want to ask both of you. Obviously, we are in that midpoint of the season where we just wrapped up the first half, ending very weirdly with Omicron derailing the Paul Rudd episode, and then we're heading towards the second half. Ariana DeBose, we're going to talk about Will Forte coming up. That's all we know so far, but obviously we have some really fun episodes hopefully coming up in the second half of the season. Let me ask both of you, Bill and then Haskell, what are your expectations for the second half of the season? What are some things that you really want to see from Saturday Night Live moving forward in 47? So Bill, start with you.
I'd like to see more of what we're going to see next week, actually, with Will Forte. We saw it with the Sudeikis episode, and I think when they bring in these seasoned veterans, these alumni, I think it bodes well for a fantastic show because, I know not people weren't as high on this episode as I think I was, and they think that some of it was being saved for Forte. And I don't know that I agree with that, but at the same point, I think that somebody like a Mulaney or a Forte or a Sudeikis, you're getting the writers to perform at another level. So I'd like to see a lot of that in the second half and, have some of these people who have been kind of in the background break out some more as well.
Yeah, I definitely don't think they were saving stuff for Forte. I'm not even sure that people at the show knew that Will Forte was coming in, when they started writing earlier this week. I really think that given the circumstances of what is happening right now, SNL is taking things week to week. So I'm not sure. I mean, I think they have an idea and they probably asked the host for the episode following the Forte episode, but I'm not sure that everybody who, all the writers know who it is and are going to save stuff. That's not really something that the show tends to do. So I agree with you, Bill. But Haskell, let me ask you, what were your expectations? What are you looking forward to in the second half of the season?
Well, one of my wishes, and it really is a wish because of where we are in the world, and especially coming into the week, coming into the Will Forte episode, I don't think it's really realistic. But contrary to where we were just a few seasons ago, I would like to get back to a point where there's more kind of drop-in cameos again, and obviously right now we haven't had much of that because of COVID concerns, and you can't just have people show up and they have to go through a whole ordeal. If there was ever a week, of course, this is the week with Will Forte. I'm sure all of us that, John, you've always spoken about season 32, very highly season 32. I'm right there with you. I think it's one of the greatest seasons ever. That entire core is what I grew up with. We want everybody there, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not going to happen. My more realistic kind of goal for the show is to kind of do a little bit of what they've done a few times this year. I'm okay with episodes where Cecily Strong isn't available. She's not in the house. If Kate McKinnon has to go away again, if A.D. Bryant's not around, and get episodes that focus on guys like Chris Redd or Andrew Dismukes. We can have this big core, this big cast, and then week to week kind of shrink it down and give people whole episodes, not just sketches to kind of showcase themselves. So I wouldn't mind seeing them take that kind of path forward for kind of the rest of this year as we assume again going into next year that there's going to be some cast changes if it happens.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I mean, I think that my biggest concern going into the second half of the season was, the Kate McKinnon factor. I think that for me, my thought was, hey, this could be the swan song for someone like Kate, and then the show will look very Kate focused, potentially, especially with Cecily not being there. I just felt like the domination for Kate will start in the second half of the season. And I'm going to maintain what I said on previous podcasts. Kate is one of the all-time greatest cast members in the history of SNL. She is incredible. She's a wonderfully talented SNL cast member. I just believe we've probably seen everything we're going to see from Kate at this point. So for me, that was a big concern of mine, to halt the momentum from the first half of the season from all of the new players, and then we're going to hand the reins back to the most experienced cast members on the show and take away some of the shine. I was actually very pleasantly surprised with what we ended up seeing from this episode of SNL, in the Ariana DeBose episode, where the number one thing we were talking about for the last, in season 46 was Kate, 80, and Cecily have been around for so long that it's possible Heidi Gardner and Chris Redd, who were going into their 5th season, may get overshadowed by not only Kate, Cecily, and Aidy, but by the people coming under them. So they are basically never going to get their chance to shine. And what I saw from this episode was exactly what I was hoping for, which is doubling down on Chris Redd and Heidi Gardner are turning into stars on the show. They are both having their best seasons in the 5th season on the show and are no longer going to be what I was concerned about, which was somewhat forgotten cast members between 2 generations of the show. So, my expectations for a season 47B is we're going to get more of that. That's my hope. Bill, do you agree?
I do. And I think your concern is founded, with what we've seen in previous eras, the Abby Elliott's and Nassim Pedrads of the world kind of fading into, the background or the medium or and we're not seeing with that with them. But I am concerned about a couple of other people on the show that we're not seeing a lot of and how much is being taken away from them because of Kate and Cecily and Aidy. I feel the same way. I feel like they're 3 of the best people we've ever had on the show. But why aren't we getting more Melissa? Why aren't we getting more Sarah? Those kind of people where we need them in more sketches and not just as a waiter or as a background player.
Well, I want to feed the positive a little bit. So I want to say, yes, I agree with what you're saying for sure. I think, but I'm really enjoying the fact that SNL made this decision, whatever it was, to just, give Heidi as many sketches as possible this season. I mean, she is just crushing it in terms of sketches. And obviously Chris dominating pre-tapes into this episode, completely just crushing. We're going to get into those sketches. So Haskell, I want to give you a chance to comment on this discussion and then we'll get into the episode.
Yeah. I mean, I've said it for a long time. I think Chris Redd was as polished as anybody I've ever seen come into the show. And it's been 5 years of him being yeah, he's got it. He's got it. And then really happy to see him take step forward. I think especially on this podcast, we've said for a long time that Heidi Gardner is amazing. She's never been one I've worried about though. I've always assumed that she's going to get her time because she's so good and she's doing that right now.
Okay, that's good. Well, anyway, so there are some really good things from this episode to talk about, especially in terms of directions they went with the cast. It'll be fascinating to see how this moves on next week to when they bring in a former cast member, especially with the momentum we saw from the last time they brought in a former cast member. The Jason Sudeikis episode, just, by far, everybody agrees the best episode of the season. So we'll talk about that at the end of the show. Okay. Let's talk about our cold open. We always on our roundtables discuss our cold open, and let's talk about the message from the president. So we had James Austin Johnson return as President Joe Biden for the 3rd time. The last time we saw this was in the Sudeikis episode. We had Pete's first time playing Biden in this one, a version of Joe Biden, and a few cast members there asking questions. So this was an interesting perspective to talk about Joe Biden and how SNL is portraying him via James Austin Johnson. So Bill, let me give you a chance to comment on your thoughts on this cold open.
I actually really enjoyed this cold open. We have not had Biden shoved down our throat. As you said, it's been since Sudeikis since we've seen him. And I think this is the best presidential impression we've had since Farrell with George W. Others may disagree, but that's my feeling on it. I really enjoy his portrayal of it. I like his intonation on the voice. And I feel like, this was the week to do it. He's been in the news a lot for a lot of negative stuff, unfortunately. So they needed to find a way. I feel like it went a bit too long with the Spider-Man stuff, but the payoff was worth it at the end with Dismukes, as the nerd explaining the multiverse. And from that point on, it got stronger, which is very rare on SNL for a 7-minute cold open to get stronger as it goes on. It usually peters out and we wonder why they're still going. But that was my feeling on it. I really enjoyed the way that it ended with Pete coming out and explaining the better universe for everyone but him, and only 2 people saying live from New York. So that's always a plus for me as well.
Yes, that is for sure. I mean, I would say on a technicality, I think Daryl Hammond's Trump probably because he did play him for a little bit. I'd probably say most recent great impression of a president. But I totally get what you're saying. So I'm so interested and fascinated to hear, Bill, that you were so high on this cold open. Before I head to Haskell, Bill, had you seen Spider-Man? Is that why?
I have, and knock on wood, I have not got Omicron because of it. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that's kind of part of the pop culture of going on right now, with nobody going to movies for almost 2 years, and Spider-Man being such a huge hit, and every age and every, like, I get what they were going for. It was a little disappointing at the beginning, but to have it come together at the end with the three Bidens, especially the T-Birds, Tacos, and Trains version of Biden, I would love to watch that show on MSNBC.
Yes, that's true. But we did get a lot of
Stop seeing Spider-Man.
we just I've heard it so many times. Okay, I got you. Got you, Josh. I got you. All right. Haskell, your thoughts on the cold open?
I think as terms of where we're going with Biden, of course, it's a very technically sound impression. And, I agree with Bill. Like, it's probably the best impression that we've had in a long time. I think they're still moving in a direction, like a great impression on Saturday Night Live. Of course, it has to be technically sound, but Jay Farrow's Obama was very technically sound, and they never found a hook for it. I think they're already ahead with this Biden, but I'm still waiting to see a character come up where, when you see that character on screen, you know what you're going to get. Even as tired as we all got of Alec Baldwin's Trump, we kind of knew what that character was and where it was going to go week to week. So still waiting for him to develop where a character will be. For the cold open in general, I liked it. I like their ability to touch upon a few things at once without making it a laundry list of, we have to touch upon this and this and this. And it wasn't like, let's go to Obama's speech, then let's go to Spider-Man. Like, they were able to kind of weave them together, which I don't think they always do. But the multiverse, that was the left turn that the sketch should have taken halfway through, not the twist ending. That should have come up earlier. We should have explored some multiverse things. I think you had a chance for some to make some other moves there, maybe an Alex Moffat Biden before you get to the Pete Davidson Biden. So I just think it should have gotten there earlier, because the stop going to see Spider-Man joke kind of ran its course and then went on for another 2 minutes.
Stop seeing Spider-Man.
Exactly.
Yes. I see your point, Haskell, for sure. I just think that what they're doing is, and this is the most fascinating part, and I think we as an SNL community have to debate this a little bit. We have to talk about it because in the history of SNL, Dana Carvey's George H.W. Bush, most people feel, shaped the perception of H.W. Bush, right? You watched SNL, he did the character, and then you looked at the president differently. Same thing with Chevy's Gerald Ford back in the day. I mean, that was that. Is it possible that JJ is going to play President Biden so deranged that people start perceiving the real President Biden as more deranged potentially than he actually is? I mean, that would be fascinating to me. And I think it's lines like this.
Is it COVID in the bathroom?
That, which got me, that I started to think, I was like, maybe it's possible. Sorry, go ahead, Bill.
My favorite line of the whole sketch, for sure.
Yes. I will also say one other comment, which is about Pete Davidson in the cold open. I really enjoyed getting to hear from Pete playing his Bill Brasky in the cold open, which was a very, very much alike.
The timeline you are all living in is about to collapse.
It was like, okay, Pete Brasky, what are you doing there? So that was where I was going with that one. Yes, but I did. A lot of people did not like this cold open. I enjoyed it much more on a second watch. I found for me there was more here. It was definitely probably a little bit on the longer side. What was fascinating from a production perspective is it seems a lot of weeks this season they've been writing these cold opens last minute. I was not told that this cold open was written at the last minute. So for me, I was like, okay, it's interesting to evaluate the cold open, knowing that they probably put some more thought and time into it, and what we ended up getting from it, which a lot of people did feel like wasn't as great, and someone like you, Bill, felt like was really good. So always interesting to think about. Okay, so let's talk about the sketches that we want to talk about. Oh, somebody is at the podcast door. Bill, do you think I should answer it?
Do you hear any shark noises?
I don't know. All right, I think I got to answer it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see who's at the podcast door. is we have a former cast member Gary Kroeger here, a cast member from 1982 to 1985 on Saturday Night Live, is joining us for our 100th episode of the SNL Network. Gary, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm less than 100 years old myself, but closing in on it surprisingly fast.
Okay, well, not yet. We still got a lot.
Have
We
an
got a lot
episode
of
when I do turn 100. Say congratulations, Gary, if you can hear me.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of podcasts left to record with you, Gary, so don't go anywhere too soon. Yes, but it's so great to hear from you. We heard from you earlier on in the year, last year, actually, when we talked about, I think it was the Carey Mulligan episode of season 46, and you joined us on our roundtable. And it was just, our fans, all the listeners, were just so thrilled to get to hear from Gary Kroeger and get his thoughts
you're
on
just
SNL,
you're
so
just saying that.
No, I'm serious.
You're just a really nice person trying to make the old guy pushing 100 feel good.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for joining us today for a little bit. So we are right now having our roundtable talking about Ariana DeBose and Bleachers, the first SNL episode of 2022. I know you spoke to our friend Andy Hoagland for Entertainment Weekly about your thoughts about the episode, but tell the listeners who are podcast listeners what your thoughts were about this episode.
I got to tell you something. First of all, Ariana is sublime. Sublime. She is the total performer. I mean, as soon as she came out for the opening monologue, which I really enjoyed, I get a kick out of the Kate McKinnon Verizon wireless girl that she always seems to be now. But I really enjoyed that. But her, first of all, she can sing, she can dance, she just has so much personality. But it's authentic, even though it's heightened in a way. It's that she loves to perform, and it just comes through. I just thought she was magnificent.
Yeah, really just outstanding. And it's very cool to see a host bring their own style to the show. When you have someone with a Broadway background, you naturally feel like you're going to get some Broadway stuff going on. Do you have any, Broadway comparisons maybe to the time when you were on SNL? Any host that came in with that?
Yeah, my comparison when I was there is that I was 2 blocks away from Broadway. That's as close as I really ever got, is I would walk up and down. No, there really is. I have nothing really to compare it to. If I were to say one thing about my era there with Brad and with Julia, we were very theatrical. We came from a theatrical background. We were in Chicago doing theater. And so we approached SNL very theatrically. We didn't like cue cards and things like that. And I'm not comparing me to Ariana or any great Broadway star, but when somebody loves an audience and organically just feels the audience. It's a different animal performing on a stage than it is in front of a camera. And you could just tell that she was so comfortable with people in the moment. I'm sort of rambling, but I was just really, really struck in a positive way by her.
Yeah, no, I love to hear it. And one of the questions I really had was like, how does, somebody who comes from a sketch comedy or a stand-up comedy background compare to somebody who comes in from the Broadway background? So it's interesting to think about those two types of hosts that we see come in on Saturday Night Live.
Well, there's an energy to someone who comes from theater. There's just an energy. It's not as focused necessarily. It's more out to the room. Now, the only thing I ever learned really is that camera is the only thing that matters. So if you take your line that way, no one saw your face. So you learn to cheat everything this way toward the camera or the 3 cameras. You find the lens. Other than that, you're still performing for an audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And last night when we watched the episode, was there a sketch that stood out to you?
Well, I want to make another broad statement. It seems like I'm a shill
Broadway
for
statement.
A Broadway statement, a shill for Saturday Night Live. For years, because when people know that I was on the show, what they love to say? Oh, we don't watch it anymore. It's not funny. It's too political. It was good in the old days, and they even include my old days. That's when we watched it. Ladies and gentlemen, Saturday Night Live is better than it's ever been. It's consistently gotten better. I mean, I loved it with Dana Carvey and Phil and all of them as well, and Chris. But I think this cast, these writers, are the best I've ever seen. Because what stood out for me was Urkel. And the reason Urkel stood out is I'm looking at the production value of this. That is as fantastic as the highest end of movie production. and I'm talking about the lighting and the editing, everything about it. Yeah, it was kind of a one joke premise, and maybe it played itself out, but I was just my jaw dropped at just how fantastic they are able to produce such things. I loved lesbian poetry, Greek lesbian poetry. And again, here's why I love it. Yeah, again, it's hard to it's one joke kind of played over and over and over. It's hard to escape that, right? It's hard. You come up with a premise and you find what's funny in it and you sort of replicate that. Okay. It surprised me at the fact that they have writers that are so intellectual and a willingness from Lauren on down and Steve Higgins to do things that are so esoteric. I mean, a lecture class on lesbian poetry from the, it blew my mind. I just love that stuff.
Yeah, there was a lot of great stuff there. I mean, the Urkel thing, I think, for me was just probably the best thing of the night for me. I loved the quality. I mean, you mentioned it. Yeah. And even that Sappho sketch you're talking about, the line, we broke up Helena, please get your sandals out of here. It was just,
right. Yeah, I mean, the first joke was the best. And then, like I say, you sort of replicate that joke. But it was hysterical. The performances were so good. And everybody, I don't know, I become a fanboy. I really do.
For sure.
And I wish that I could be in it in a way, I just wish that I were there.
Yes. Well, I mean, speaking of like wishing that you were in it and stuff like that, I mean, for me, one of the great things we've been able to do at the SNL Network is really connect fans of Saturday Night Live from around the world, people who love the show and just want to get a small glimpse into the behind the scenes and talk about their favorite moments or maybe things they didn't love so much, but can connect with others on them. And I just would love to know, from you, if you had something that you could say to the fans of Saturday Night Live, the people who are checking out our podcast and your podcast and connecting with all of the former cast members, any word for the community of Saturday Night Live who just wants to, get together and talk about the show?
Well, yeah. And I don't know what I'm going to say yet, but the answer is yes. What I just said, the show just gets better and better. I mean, you're not going to like everything. A great Hall of Fame baseball player hits the ball 3 out of 10 times, right? That gets on base. There are always going to be things you don't like, but the quality, the talent from writers to directors to actors, of course, just gets better and better. And somebody said to me the other day, "Oh, SNL will be over when Lauren retires. It'll be the 50th. He's 80. It's over." No. This show was not created for Lauren. This was created to exist so long as people want to be satirical, enjoy parody, want to laugh, be absurd, be thought-provoking, be dangerous. And that will always exist. I'll bet you he'll hand the reins to Steve Higgins. I hope it's something like that. And a new generation of SNL will come forth, and it'll be better and better and better. So my word is just keep loving the show, keep watching it, keep talking about it. We suffer slings and arrows. I don't like it. It's too political. Well, of course it is. Of course, that's the job is to be satirical and to look at what's going on that really influences our lives and say, hey, wait a second. There's another angle here that we need to explore. It's healthy for the environment, healthy for society. All right, I'm off my podium, my pulpit.
You did great, Gary. I know I'm saying a lot, but you are insanely talented. It is so great to just get to hear from you, even just for a little segment. So I just would love for you to tell the listeners where they can hear more from you.
Well, I do have a podcast, and you can find it on podcast platforms as well as DBNA TV, which is a streaming, and we have a YouTube channel, and it's called The Gary and Kenney Show. And it's a buddy of mine who's a retired television director, and we just get together and we gab for a while, and we try to find somebody from our past. Brad Hall's been on the show. Tim Kazurinsky's been on the show. Robin Duke, Joe Piscopo is going to do the show, but not just SNL, from Kenney's career. People like Mark Gordon, the extraordinary producer, Chris Meledandre, and we talk about the business, how you got in it, and we try to make it fun. So it's a very interesting show. And I write for the Courier. I write a political column. I lean to the left. There's no mistaking that. And I have a blog called Gary Has Issues. So, check him out.
Absolutely. Yeah, he just does so much great stuff. So please check out everything from Gary Kroeger. Gary, thank you so much for joining us on our 100th episode.
Always a pleasure.
Okay, wow. Gary Kroeger jumping in on the 100th episode celebration at the SNL Network. Bill, always great to hear from Gary, right?
Absolutely. How do we follow that up? That was amazing hearing from him again.
Yeah, so thank you, Gary Kroeger, for joining us. I hope everybody checks out his show, Gary and Kenney, on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Okay, let's continue our discussion of the Ariana DeBose episode. And Bill, I will start with you. Let us know a sketch that you want to talk about.
I'd like to talk about the Eric Adams press conference. We've already spent time tonight talking about Chris Redd. Wow, I mean this felt like a coronation. Like this was him heading up the mountain for the last 5 years, and last year we started to see him break out. This whole episode was all about Chris Redd, and this was the touchstone to that. This was hilarious. Playing the New York City mayor, the newly elected New York City mayor. SNL has such an interesting history with mayors from New York City. They're the only ones that could get away with this. Like, does somebody in Arkansas understand, the power of the New York mayor? Like, it's pretty interesting. Going all the way back to Gary's era with Ed Koch, who hosted. So we've had some kind of version of all of these mayors since the early 80s.
Let alone Giuliani. Yeah.
Well, the name that shall not be spoken.
Oops.
But yeah, I mean, this was great. The escalation, as we always talk about, seeing it lead from him coming right out. We've seen this press conference 100 times. We saw it earlier in the episode with Biden, and they leaned more into the nicknames, which can get a little tiresome. But I think that Redd and the writers did a great job with this particular one. I love the Princess Peach moniker that he gave Heidi, and telling her congrats on escaping that castle. This guy is an interesting, if you follow politics at all, this guy's an interesting choice for mayor of New York City. And I think that we could see this quite a bit on the show in the next 4 years. And hopefully that will be Chris Redd the entire time.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, I don't buy the argument. I saw it in our chat during the Hot Take Show. I do not buy the argument that New York politics is too local to highlight on Saturday Night Live in the cold open in particular. I don't buy that whatsoever. I think that SNL is New York centric with everything. And I think that, this was so good to me that this had to be up front and center. And I just think that I get it. Like, you don't want to push back Biden, but we did last year. If we did last season, I remember there was going to be a Biden cold open that got pushed back. So for me, this to me was like no comparison that this should have been the cold open. Haskell, what do you think?
Yeah, this is sort of what I'm talking about when the impression needs a character. I saw a lot of people on social media saying that the characterization of Eric Adams was not spot on. And to that, I say I don't care because it was funny. It had some teeth to it. It had something to say, and it was hilarious. So, and even and it moved the needle because even Eric Adams commented on it on Sunday, quoting the tweet, using the clip as a way to promote people getting vaccinated. So it moved the needle. It was funny. It's a character that we could come back to. It created a pattern. I think, Ariana DeBose was great in this. Obviously Chris Redd was amazing, but she showed great energy. I think it was the most comfortable that she was the whole episode when she wasn't singing, which is obviously kind of her forte. So that's natural, but this was
not her Will Forte.
And so that was like a great spot for her. And it also created something to come back to, when we do this sketch again, there's a spot for the host. Like Eric Adams has a hype man, whoever that may be, whoever it needs to be, we can come back to that. So this is probably the sketch for me of the night. It was probably the highlight of the night. And it's the sketch that kind of keeps the wheels turning potentially in the future.
Yeah, and I think a lot about Fred Armisen's David Patterson, which I think was, problematic in certain senses, but certainly like on Weekend Update was definitely a, familiar recurring character. And that was, very New York centric and something that I would say is a little bit in recent times. And I just think that what was so great about this sketch wasn't necessarily like, I agree with all the things the guys are saying. Like there was a hook. There was a character we now in the entire, in all of the US and up here in Canada, we know who Eric Adams is based on SNL now and what Chris Redd portrayed him as. But what was so fascinating to me was that I felt like Chris was doing things with this character that we haven't seen Chris do with anything else he's done on SNL. Sure, we've seen him rap before. Sure, we've seen him play all types, but it was the wordplay, it was the fast talking that I just felt that I was like, I didn't know he had this in him that was just so amazing. It was lines like these.
You can't start the day without finishing first.
and this one.
I'm not going to get popped in the head. I'm going to receive some.
I mean, great sketch writing, unbelievable sketch writing, and unbelievable deliveries here from Chris, Bill.
I apologize, unless you like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, the JFK line was fantastic. Again, this is why I feel like this was another step forward for Chris, and he's been my favorite male cast member for a while, and he just kind of cemented that for me.
Absolutely. And I'm going to be thinking about this
Hey,
one.
bitch, I'm from New York. Let's go.
It's just so good. And he came in with so much swagger. And to me, it was like a coronation for him to begin his ascent as one of the main players on the show. So just really exciting to see everything we got to see from Chris there. Haskell, anything else you wanted to say about the Eric Adams sketch? Because I know we talked about it a lot on Saturday, but I just really need to give him our props where it's due.
Just real quick on what you said about the quick line delivery. Like I really like that, some of those lines are kind of really raunchy and you can kind of hide that stuff with the quickness of it, that it does take you a second to come back to and go, what did he just say? And I think it kind of allows you to get away with a little bit more, even on late, at 11:30 at night. But so I really like that. And I hope that is part of that character moving forward.
Yeah. And the one other thing I would say also is Monette brought up Cory Booker in the chat as another impression that Chris has done. But Bill, I have to think, like in Chris's 5 years on the show, the potential for what he could do with Eric Adams. And again, we don't know if SNL is going to take it, right? This could be a one-off thing that was really good. Let's put it to bed. But I don't think so. I don't think that SNL is going to do that. So to me, do you agree with the sentiment that this is the most important role Chris has had to date on Saturday Night Live?
Without a doubt, this will keep him going. And if Eric Adams turns out to be batshit crazy, then this will be something that we see on a weekly basis, which we don't want. We don't want to go back in that direction. But if this comes out every 3 or 4 episodes, I do put the over-under at the real Eric Adams. I saw Casey mention it in the chat. I put it at about 3 episodes before we have the real Eric Adams in there. So.
Okay. Guys, I'm going to ask you, we did ask our Instagram audience. We asked them, would you have preferred the Eric Adams press conference to be the cold open? Okay. So we asked, I would like to get a percentage from both of you on how many people from our Instagram audience felt that this should have been the cold open. Bill, I'll start with you.
62%. Okay.
Haskell?
74.
All right. Very surprising. 48% over here. Very, very surprising. So really only 48% felt like it should be the cold open. I disagree. But, obviously a lot of people felt like the Biden thing was strong. So interesting perspective. Always fun to get a larger audience's opinion on that. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the next sketch that we want to talk about. And Haskell, I will head over to you to get your sketch. Oh, wait. Hold on. I think we have another knock at the podcast door. Haskell, I wasn't sure if I should open it last time. Should I open it this time?
Well, in the words of Mr. Robinson, let me ask, who is it?
Who is it?
The answer to figure it out.
Let me tell you. We have Siobhan Fallon Hogan, season 17 SNL cast member, has just dropped by the SNL Network's 100th episode. Siobhan, how are you?
Good, John. Congratulations. That's so awesome. 100 episodes. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so nice to get to speak to you. We got to talk to you all the way back in August when you were releasing your new film, Rushed, and we got to catch up with you and hear about your time at Saturday Night Live. So thank you so much for being a part of the first 100 episodes of the SNL Network.
It's my pleasure and my honor.
Okay, well, catch the listeners about what you've been up to. What are you working on now? How's everything going in your life?
Well, of course, Rush came out, so that was crazy doing publicity for that. And it's doing really well. It's got great reviews, so we're really happy about that. And then I shot another movie in upstate New York that I wrote in October. And Robert Patrick, who plays my husband in Rush, now plays the warden in this movie. And Dan
Wow.
Castellaneta, you know, the voice of Homer Simpson, he's a guard in it. And Peter Macon from Orville, he's in it. So we wrapped that, and now we're editing, and I go to France this coming Saturday to edit. But in the meantime, I was just filming. I'm in this movie with Anne Hathaway and Thomas and Mackenzie that William Oldroyd is directing called Eileen. That's actually shooting in New Jersey where I live. So we were just shooting last night till about 1 o'clock in the morning. If I look a little funny, freezing to death. But yeah, so things have been good, thank God.
So I'm so happy to hear that for you. You are a wonderfully talented actress, so I'm just so excited for all
Thank
the
you,
things
Jon.
you've got going on. So I do want to ask you a couple SNL related questions.
Sure.
We did have an episode this Saturday night with host Ariana DeBose and musical guest Bleachers. I do want to ask you. I mean, she is an actress that comes from West Side Story, from a Broadway background. Do
Yeah.
you have any experience in your time at Saturday Night Live dealing with hosts that came from a more dramatic background,
Oh, that's a good question. Let me think about that.
or Broadway musical, that type of style?
Well, you know, Steve Martin did the musical, the big Broadway musical, and production number. So that was insane. And I have worked with Anna Gasteyer, not when I was on, we were on Saturday Night Live at the same time, but we did a movie together. What's the worst that could happen? So she was big Broadway. And I'm trying to think who else on the cast with me. I did Shakespeare in the Park. I did a lot of theater before I did SNL. I'm trying to think of what other people were really theater people. Mainly people were stand-ups. Chris Farley did a lot of, you know, improv and stage work at Second City. But other than that, I'm just going through the cast in my mind. Of course, Julia Sweeney, she had her own one-woman show on Broadway after SNL, which I went to and was fabulous. And let me think of the guys. I'm going through the list in my head. Phil Hartman came from stage. He did a lot of improv with the Groundlings. But that was about it. Most people were,
Okay.
a lot of people were stand-ups.
Do you think it's easier to translate, you know, going from a stand-up experience to the SNL stage versus, you know, somebody coming in from a Broadway background in the stage to come on to 8H?
I honestly do, because they use cue cards. And as an actress, you want to know your character, you want to know it fully, and you want to be ready to roll. Where you have to fly from the seat of your pants when you're on SNL. And sometimes you're like, and I'm like, oh no, I am not looking at cue cards. I don't roll that way. I want to know my lines. I want to be in my character. I can't like look, but stand-ups, it's easier for them to do that because they're not really, you know, trained in the other way.
Yes, that's for sure. Well, yeah, I mean, it was a really fun episode with Ariana. We do have former cast member Will Forte coming in next week. I'm not sure if
that's
you had
great.
heard about that, but that's so exciting to get
That's
him in.
awesome.
So I do want to ask you, I know that you had mentioned previously that your, you know, one of your first roles was with Betty White, who we lost recently.
Yes.
Would love to hear that story for the listeners.
Yes. So my very first TV job was on The Golden Girls, and I played Betty White's annoying assistant. Hope it wasn't typecasting. And I had done a one-woman show in LA, and one of the producers from The Golden Girls came and saw it. And also my friend David Goodman, who's now the head of the Writers Guild, he worked on the show. He brought the producers. So they wanted me to be on it. Anyway, so I had the great honor of working with Betty White, which was unbelievable because she was, first of all, beautiful inside and out, hilarious, just a great person, so great to work with. And I, of course, thought I was part of the team. It was my first TV job. And, you know, when you're on TV shows, the guest star, the directors spend most of the time directing the guest star, because when you get to be big stars like that, they don't really want to hear, you know, hey, try that again this way. So by the end of the week, the TV guide was what the old folks like myself used to use to find out what was on TV. And there was a picture of the Golden Girls on the front of the TV guide, and I cut it out and put my head in. And Betty was like, oh, Siobhan, thank you so much. I think the rest of them thought, my God, what's wrong with this girl? We're on to the next guest star next week. But I absolutely loved her. And you know, so ironic, you know, just shortly before her 99th or 100th birthday that she should pass. But what a life, and how unbelievable that I got a chance to work with her. I feel so lucky and blessed.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, she was the star of like everything, and just you get to, you know, to celebrate her life, especially, you know, for us at SNL, who had a wonderful celebration of her during the 35th year of the show. She came on with a lot of great female cast members who have been part of the show. So just wonderful celebration, and great to hear about Betty White. Siobhan, the other thing I do want to ask you, I mean, again, you know, 100 episodes here at the SNL Network. We have built a really strong, you know, fan community of people from all around the world who love Saturday Night Live. Could you just, you know, tell, you know, the SNL listeners, the fans, just give them some advice about, why it's so important to connect with each other over the love for the show. I mean, for me, at least, as someone who's hosted the podcast, it's been such a wonderful experience. But as a former cast member, I'm sure it would mean a lot to them if you could tell them, what it meant to be a part of the experience, and being a part of the community now for them must be special to hear from you.
Well, Jon, first of all, I think it's great what you're doing, because people do love SNL, and it's just a phenomenon, and it's unbelievable it's been going this many years. And what Lauren's done, I mean, shows, people are like, oh, I had 9 seasons, Everybody Loves Raymond, fabulous show, these other great shows, but to keep SNL going this many years is crazy. And just the formula works, and you getting all the new casts in and out, and it's definitely a club, because it is hard, and so everybody has that sort of camaraderie. It's kind of like skiing. If anybody's a skier, I know you're from Canada, and you skied on the coldest day, and you make it into the lodge, like, my God, we made it. So it's like a club that you can't believe that you made it. It's like being in the Marines or the Navy SEALs of comedy. And it's just something that, you can bond with others around it. And the support, like for my movie Rushed, Adam Sandler, David Spade, these people that were my friends from years and years ago have been so insanely supportive, because you just appreciate so much the hard work in those days and the longevity together, the great memories. I mean, like the people that are gone, Chris Farley, Phil Hartman, of course, when I was, when I wanted to get on, I idolized Gilda Radner. She was my, I was like, oh, so it's these just greats that you have the opportunity to work with. And it's so nice of you to share that with all the SNL fans.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And, we always like to describe Saturday Night Live as like the party that you want to be invited to.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, exactly. And, for us, I'm just so thankful to you, Siobhan, for letting us in, just a little bit to see what your experience was like and sharing your stories. So I just want to thank you for all of that.
Well, Jon, I think it's awesome. I mean, I have an uncle who's 74. He still sends me like SNL paraphernalia. I mean, people just love it. And I think what you're doing is just a great service and entertainment for all the fans. So that's great what you're doing. Congratulations on 100 episodes.
Thank you so much. Please, once again, tell the listeners where they can catch up on everything you're doing. I know you were recently written up in a Forbes article as well.
Yeah. Can you imagine? I mean, I'm the most non-business oriented person, and they did a big article, which was so nice, of this woman, Kathy Caprino, on Forbes on Rushed and my career. So Rushed, you can watch now. It was in the theaters August and September. It's now on Amazon, Apple, iTunes, Vudu, Redbox, and it's streaming on demand. And then my next film will be out. Hopefully we're editing and getting it wrapped up in the next year. So, so I appreciate all the support and people that tune into Rushed. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And you'll have to come back on the SNL Network to tell us all about that new film.
Absolutely, Jon.
Thank you so much, Siobhan. Okay. Wow. Siobhan Fallon Hogan, former cast member. Haskell, how wonderful it was to get to hear from Siobhan.
Former cast member and my friend on Facebook. A little tidbit there.
Okay.
One little thing that stuck out, a great story about Betty White, by the way, but also her and Gary both mentioning things about cue cards and coming from a certain, performance background and not wanting to use cue cards. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know where it really goes, but it's just kind of funny to think of people coming on to SNL. We think of cue cards being so associated with the show, and then, people not really wanting to use them. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it really is. It's just fascinating to get to hear from these people who were at the show. So thanks to Siobhan Fallon Hogan for joining us. Make sure to check out her movie Rushed and the new movie she's working on. Really cool. She's working with Anne Hathaway. That's awesome. So just excited to get to hear from her. Thank you again, Siobhan. Okay, Haskell, before Siobhan rudely interrupted you, please tell the listeners which sketch you would like to talk about.
Yeah, Gary stole my thunder a little bit, but I really liked that the Family Matters sort of reboot, the serious reboot. I'm a sucker for when SNL does this and sort of blends things together. I talked about it a little bit with the cold open. Like, I like when they can weave things together. I absolutely loved it when they did the Sesame Street Joker with Oscar the Grouch. I thought with David Harbour, I thought that was incredible. Even in the same sense when they did the Soprano Diaries, and it was the Carrie Diaries and the Sopranos. I thought that was a great sketch. I love going back to visit that one. So I love whenever they do this. And I also like when SNL, the second they said another 90s feel good show, my fiance looked at me and was like, it's going to be Urkel. So I like when we know what SNL is going to do, but it still surprises, because I looked right back at her and I said, he's going to shoot somebody and say, did I do that? And he didn't quite. They played it a little bit where he's kicking somebody.
He did this.
Did I do that?
He did say it. He did say it.
And they played with it a little bit. So I like when they can I can see where they're going, but they twist it a little bit. And my God, how many miles can Keenan get out of Carl Winslow? Like, he is just, I would like to go back. I'm on the right podcast to make this request. I'd like to look at not a celebrity, but what is the record for most times a single cast member has done just a TV character? Like, he has gotten so many miles out of that. I'd love to kind of do a deep dive into that one. And it's always great every time that he brings it back. And this was sort of the first time that they've been able to do this, but with of course, being a sort of a gritty remake. So Keenan was able to play on that character a little bit. But like I said, I'm a sucker for when they do this. I thought it was great. And I always welcome a sketch like this.
Yeah. I would think it's Gumby, right, Bill? I think that would probably be the record for that.
I would think so. Yeah. Off the top of my head. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I would think. So, yeah, I mean, this sketch, I mean, wow, the pre-tape. I mean, I'm a '90s sitcom person, so for me, like, I've seen a little bit of everything, and for me, when I heard that they were making Bel Air, I was very excited to get to see what Will Smith was going to end up. He's one of the producers, and what they're going to end up doing with his character, and just so smart, like just so smart, everything that they decided to go ahead with Urkel. I started to think to myself, I started thinking, like, what other sitcoms could they tackle? I know that this has been a something that's been happening over the last 5 years, is just, we've seen, whether it's reunions such as the Friends reunion, or whether it's shows like Fuller House where they continue in the universe. I just know that this is a big thing for, 90s, 2000s nostalgia is definitely becoming a big thing right now. So to me, it's fascinating to get to see this dramatic version of what this could potentially be. So Bill, would love to hear your thoughts on Urkel.
Ooh, I hate to be the only one here with the great Gary Kroeger, great Andrew Haskell, and great Jon Schneider, but this didn't work for me all the way. It was so well put together. It was obviously the editing and everything that they did with that was fantastic, but I got Grouch vibes immediately.
Not Oscar the Grouch.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean Oscar the Grouch? Sorry,
yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yes. And then it kind of felt like we're advertising Peacock, and that kind of bugged me a little bit, and it took me out of it. Now, maybe on a second time I watched it, it was a little bit better. Third time, a little bit better. So I don't want to take away from the performances of Chris and Ego and Keenan, but this was not as funny to me as Grouch. There were some good lines. I like when they're sitting on the stoop and Keenan, as Carl says, family effing matters. Like, oh, that's the name of the show. How funny. But yeah, other than that, it didn't really work for me quite as well as some of the other pre-tapes that we've seen this year.
Oh, Bill, it's taken 100 episodes, but I could not disagree with you more on this particular pre-tape. I'm fascinated by this take of yours, which I get it. I mean, look, shill for Peacock or whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, I think they would have done this regardless of whether this was on Peacock or Paramount Plus or Hulu, whatever it was on. I still think that they could have potentially done something like this, because the concept to me was just so smart. And I just think that even the little details. I mean, Bill, were you a Family Matters fan? Is that potentially where the disconnect was?
I was not. I mean, knowing I'm well tuned to pop culture, so like I was well aware of all the characters and the shows, but this was a little past my age range when it was out. That same thing with, like, when they talk about Bob Saget, who sadly just passed. That was not. I know him from the Aristocrats and his stand up and things like that. Not so much for the show that I can't even think of the name of now.
Full House. Yeah.
Thank you. But yeah, I was not a TGIF kid. That was a little past my my childhood.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. So I do think that is potentially where there is a little bit of disconnect here, because I think that if you are a Family Matters fan, or you've seen a bunch of episodes of Family Matters, the little details here with the cast members playing a family. I think Ariana playing Urkel's mom was just really, really great in this one. I would have loved to explore the world a little bit more, but I know when it comes to pre-tapes, they have to, cut things shorter. But for me, I just can't say enough about Chris Redd tonight. Just really just dominating the conversation, because he just had an excellent episode. So I do have a fun question though, Bill. I know you said you're not, you weren't like the biggest, sitcom person in this particular generation of sitcoms, but I will ask both of you. you. We asked our Instagram audience, we said, what should be the next gritty sitcom drama? Okay. So we asked them, I'll go to both of you, give us a show that should be turned into the next gritty sitcom drama. And chat, if you're listening live, let us know some thoughts from you as well.
Oh, I'll go way back, and maybe we can get a great cameo out of this. We'll go with Happy Days. And maybe we can get Henry Winkler to come in and, play the Fonz's father or something like that. That would be fantastic.
That would be really cool. Haskell, what about you?
Seinfeld. Which one of them snaps? They all snap. They all snap. They all become killers.
Well, none of them become killers as far as I know, but I think at least one of them has snapped so far. So yes, that is for sure. So yes, we did ask the Instagram audience. We asked them which sitcom should be turned into a gritty sitcom drama next, and here are the results. Oh no, wait, that is the Eric Adams one. Hold on one second. Hold up. Did I bring that up? Okay, it was good. Sorry, a lot of moving parts, everybody. I will bring that up on screen for you guys one more time. Here we go. And here are the results. Okay, so Full House, a gritty sitcom drama. Interesting, obviously, with the recent passing of Bob Saget. That would be an interesting one to do. Step by Step, I think that would be a really fun one. Friends. Friends as a drama, I would say some people would argue that Friends could have been pretty dramatic. So, yeah, that would be interesting. As Haskell said, Seinfeld comes in fourth here. And then Perfect Strangers comes in fifth. So interesting to imagine that these shows as gritty sitcom dramas. Could we potentially get this again on SNL? Who knows? Okay.
I would pay a lot of money for another streamer to see a gritty Perfect Strangers. That's a great one.
Yes, that is a very good one. And in the chat, we got some Big Bang Theory dinosaurs. Yeah, there's some very funny ones in the chat. So thank you all for contributing this one. Okay. So the sketch that I really want to talk about, and I just, I want to make sure we do. I wasn't really sure which one I was going to pick before the show, but I just thought about it. And I was like, okay, this is the one I really want to make sure we talk about. And it is, one more time. Wait. Okay. Yeah, there is somebody at the door. Bill Haskell. I know I wasn't sure if I should answer it the first couple times. You think we should one more time? We'll let somebody into the podcast.
Let's do it.
Third time's a charm.
All right. Joining us one more time. Another special guest. Look who it is. We have the great Jeff Richards, former SNL cast member from 2001 to 2004, joining us on the SNL Network 100th episode. Jeff, how are you?
John, it's a pleasure to be here. And from all the people in Ohio and all the people in Minnesota, we're just such big fans of this. And no, I'm just kidding. How you doing?
I'm good. You joined us all the way back. I think we were covering the John Mulaney episode in season 46. So you were one of our first guests we ever had on the show. And I was just so excited to get to talk to a former cast member. So really just thank you for helping boost the show and getting, all these new people interested to hear what we have to say about SNL.
Thank you. And thank you for not making me wear any clothes from the waist down.
Yeah, it was not required for this drop.
I know, and it's not required when you answer the door to get a pizza, but it's going that extra mile to make people feel like they need to leave. And,
of course,
I think that means this is the end of this interview, and I appreciate being here, but my hat is almost off my head, and as you can see.
Wait. If the hat falls off, that's when we got to stop. So
if the hat falls off, then the the podcast is over with. You can't even do another episode.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. 100 and we're done. Okay. Well, Jeff, we just saw the Ariana DeBose and Bleachers episode of Saturday Night Live. I am, with a couple of panelists right now talking about that particular episode. And I would love to know your thoughts on what you got to see from Ariana DeBose and the Bleachers episode on Saturday night.
Well, I loved it. I missed Aristotle. And I love Aristotle. I love Jaj. He's so great to watch. And they're so lucky to have such a great impressionist. So subtle, like just his lip positions. And I'm not talking about a guy who wants to kiss another guy. I'm just saying his lip positions.
And you're not talking about Andrew Dismuke's lips either.
No, I'm not talking about anybody's. I'm really not talking about anybody's lips. Just lips in general, and he's good with his lips. Let's just say that.
Yes.
Does that? No, he's great. He's fantastic. I love the Longhorn sketch. You know,
Cool. Yeah. Well, I was gonna ask you, is there one particular sketch that stood out to you that you
I
really
like
want
the
to talk about?
Longhorn one. It's just so silly. It's just so silly and it's ridiculous. It's, you know, it's taking this hat's. We're almost done with this interview.
Oh no.
Hold on, I'm fine. You know, it's just like, I love when they just take a little subtle thing and just hammer it over and over again. And I like that sketch.
Yeah, you liked it's the 10-to-1 sketch, the kitchen staff sketch where they were talking about Peach and Lure. Yeah, so
what did you call me?
exactly. But yeah, I definitely could see if you like the conceit of the kitchen staff sketch, I can understand why it appeals particularly to you. So you said you really like Judge. You know, you're missing a little bit of Aristotle. Anybody else in the cast that you've seen so far in 47 just really standing out to you?
No, they're all terrible and they all need to be replaced. No, I'm just kidding. No, I like this, you know, it goes by so fast. And when I'm watching an episode, I'm like, I feel like I'm there and going through it again. So it's like, you know, I'm just staring at the scenery, the sets and everything. So I missed a lot of it in that sense, but you know, everyone's got a lot of energy and funny and hitting their marks, and it's a great cast.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeff, I mean, the listeners would love to hear, you know, everything that you've been up to. So catch the listeners on, you know, what you're doing.
Well, I got a new toilet, and it's better than this one. It's easier to clean. No, I've been doing my podcast where I do the podcast, John. You can set it up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, the Jeff Richards Show it's one of my favorite podcasts out there. Jeff does a lot of deep fake interviews. You know, you got some great guests on,
such as Jimmy Fallon. It's the coolest thing in the world. You know what I mean? How you doing, man? Hey, how you doing, man? I found a paperclip yesterday. You know what I mean? It's a paperclip, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Jimmy, you do so great. You do an incredible Dr. Phil. There's so many great.
If you want to change your life, you got to make changes in your life.
Yeah, let alone Robert Downey Jr. There's so many great ones.
We just keep going on and on. It's just like metaphors and like, you know, just weird, cathartic, strange, you know, this transcendental. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. And just an incredible guest you've had on, Bill Burr, John Lovitz, Daryl Hammond, just so many great people that you've had on, Sherry O'Terry, Gary Kroeger, just a lot of former SNL cast members. It's really cool if you're a great SNL fan. Jeff, I do want to ask you, I mean, one of the great things about, you know, what we've been able to do here at the SNL Network is bring together fans of Saturday Night Live from around the world to connect and talk about the show. As a former cast member, you know, who's part of, you know, the community and getting to meet all these comedians that you've become friends with over the years. Anything special you want to just say to the SNL fans in the community who just love to get to hear from you and connect with the former cast members?
Hang tight. You'll be getting your blankets in the mail. They're embroidered to each of you, and you know who you are. If you love it, what I love about this day and age of SNL is that you can immerse yourself in it so much more with the internet and message boards and watching the videos before they repeat. And so I think it's a great, it's great what is offered, you know, in this day and age with being able to watch the show and you know, communicate with other people that love it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Cool. Okay, well, you know, Jeff, I so appreciate you dropping in on our 100th episode special. If you could just please tell the listeners where they can find your podcast so they can check out everything you've got going on.
Well, it's the podcast was mailed out to everyone a few weeks ago. So if you didn't get it in the mail, a little envelope this big with leprechauns all over it. If you didn't get that, you have to go to you can go to Linktree/Jeff Richards, or my Instagram is the Jeff Richards, and yeah, that's how that goes.
Perfect. Well, I look forward to catching up with you sometime soon.
Thanks, John. Thanks for letting me be so weird. I mean, I know it makes you uncomfortable, and I know the people watching are uncomfortable, but just thank you very much. And on that note, I just want to
Oh no. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, Jeff Richards always creating a very fun atmosphere on the podcast. So wonderful to hear from him. And Bill, he has his toilet's fixed. I think that's what he said. Or he got a new toilet.
Thank goodness. I'll be able to sleep tonight. That is great news to hear.
Yes, so wonderful. Thank you to Jeff Richards, to Gary Kroeger, and Siobhan Fallon Hogan, all for joining us. Jeff, you could just check out his show, the Jeff Richards Show. He's put out some really fun episodes recently, and just really proud of everything that Jeff is doing over there. So shout out to all those former cast members for becoming friends of the SNL Network. Okay, the sketch that I want to talk about is the winter formal sketch. And I didn't think that I was going to talk about it when I saw this live on Saturday. And I looked at it. I saw that this was the Please Don't Destroy sketch that was written. It was written by Sarah and Please Don't Destroy. And I rewatched it, and I liked it so much more on the rewatch. And I think it was the combination of Sarah Sherman and Adam Sandler, Pete Davidson, together that just really anchored the sketch. And I just had so much fun with him anchoring it, heading off to what seemingly was who has been underratedly one of the major stars of this season of the show, with one-liners for days, Andrew Dismukes, who just is the new cast member who was willing to play weird. And we have Will Forte coming in next week. Well, Andrew Dismukes, look to Will, because I mean, talk about people who can play weird really well. I would be really thrilled to see what they could do together, because this guy is willing to make fun of himself more than any cast member I've seen in years. And I love everything we are seeing from Dismukes. So for me, this was the one sketch that I saw on a rewatch that I just ended up enjoying so much more. Bill, what were your thoughts?
This is my absolutely favorite sketch when I watched live Saturday night. It was still up there on the second watch, and it was still a hard laugh for me. I think the only thing that kind of pushed it down for me a little bit was it was too much of a Sandler impression. Like, what, why isn't Pete going out making that Hotel Transylvania 4 money if he's going to be doing this impression like this? But other than that, everything, Sarah was fantastic. I love the line with the lazy wiper and you can smell it. Like, lowbrow humor, but still really hilarious.
He needs one of those Jeff Richards new toilets.
That's it. Let's get it going. And I did laugh hard at the Get Low, as someone who may or may not have videotape proof of me dancing to that at parties in the early aughts. That made me laugh real hard.
Wait. We have footage of Bill Kenney dancing in the aughts coming in. No. Yes, but anyways, were you done, Bill? Should I head over to Haskell?
I was done, yes.
Okay. Haskell, what were your thoughts on Winter Formal?
Yeah, this was the live sketch of the night for me. I definitely enjoyed it. I was a little nervous at first because it felt like it was going down a pattern of a sketch I've seen a lot, which is two people own a business who are going to sit there. They're going to look into the camera. They're going to read off the cue card. They're going to say funny things about their business. We're going to cut to a couple of pictures that have been edited that are going to look funny, and that's going to be the sketch. It completely turned when we get to Dismukes. Phenomenal. Again, just kind of like a BB gun of these one-liners, these weird situations that he's finding himself in. Like you said, he is sort of finding his role on the show as that person, and he's killing it there. The only thing I want to see is I'm still not quite seeing the Sarah Sherman of it all. I thought she's good in this role. I feel like we saw this, earlier in the year with her poop sketch. But, give her that chance to be a little bit more weird. I'm getting more quirky than strange. And I feel like I was promised strange. So, like you said, Dismukes needs to attach himself to Forte next week. I think Sarah Sherman needs to attach herself to Forte next week.
Okay, that's a really good point, Haskell. And I did like how Sarah did that thing, and it was subtle, but maybe that's not the right word to describe it. But where she literally walked right up to the camera at the end, and I think that's the type of thing that I think and we made this comparison earlier in the season, but I think Sherry O'Terry used to do that a lot, and I think that just the owning the moment, owning the stage, that type of thing, I would love to see more from Sarah as well. So I totally get your point. I do want to point out this line, which I really loved, and we talked a lot about on Saturday. Here it is. This is from Sarah.
Gary, zoom in on those lips.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as Jeff and I spoke about, a lot of lip talk this week. So very weird stuff from Dismukes. And then the Dismukes line of the night definitely was this.
Shout out Scotty and Gavin.
Just so good. So great. So that was a really, really great sketch. Bill, is there anything else from the episode that we haven't covered yet that you want to make sure we talk about?
Jeff touched on it a little bit, but I want to talk about the kitchen staff a little bit. I think that was so weird and so perfectly 10-1. We're always looking for that. We don't get it every week as we used to. But yeah, I mean, it went on. If this was on at 12 as opposed to 10-1, we would have been killing it. But I think that Heidi plays a great restaurant manager who takes her job way too seriously. You know, A1's got to be filled because people expect to be dazzled. And just continually doing the lure and the 10 a day. I think JAJ was fantastic in this as well. Ariana, this was one of her better performances of the night as well.
Okay, Haskell, do you concur?
I think Moffat saved that sketch a little bit for me. I think at the beginning I was like, okay, it's funny voices. But Moffat added a little bit of, I don't have the right word, but, you know, a little bit of like sing-song to it that kind of brought it to the next level and kind of saved it a little bit for me. Yeah,
that's fair. I watched the show again. Still not sure what the sketch was about. So I will not talk about this one. Haskell, let me ask you: is there anything else from the episode that you want to make sure we talk about?
Yeah, I usually fall on I almost never rate a show like below a B. I feel like I fall more on the positive side. I do think they made a really big strategic error in this episode, though, and that's on Weekend Update. Going with the one correspondent being Elmo, and I've seen this a little bit on social media. I think the big mistake they made with that is this Elmo thing was a very much like a Twitter and TikTok thing. And anybody who's on Twitter and TikTok, you'll know it's hard to be first with a joke. It's hard to be the first one there. And the mistake that they made is if you're going to do something that is strictly Twitter and TikTok, you're going to be late to the joke to those people. And the people who aren't in on that aren't going to know the joke. And that's what I got a lot from that. It felt like we're going to rehash this Twitter thing and go through that. And there was just this disconnect of like, oh, so you like told us what happened on Twitter and TikTok and what they're using as a TikTok sound. That's great. Can we get to the next Weekend Update correspondent? And then before you know it, they're closing Weekend Update. I thought that was, Weekend Update for me, especially these last few years, like with their eyes closed, one hand tied behind their back, it's like a B+ to me. Not this one. This was probably the most disappointed I've been in Weekend Update in a long, long time.
Okay, but would you have preferred this if they did that TikTok pre-tape we got on the Billie Eilish episode where they went through all the TikToks? Would you have preferred if we had Chloe as Elmo in one of those? I
think the Elmo TikTok thing and Chloe Feynman saved a little bit because she's that good. If they touched upon it, that's fine. It being the centerpiece of Update was where it really kind of misfired for me.
Yeah, I'm happy that they gave Chloe her shine for sure. I mean, again, I understand the dislike of this particular piece in a way, but I don't know that I necessarily agree with the premise, Haskell, respectfully, that TikTok got to it first, so SNL can't. Or maybe SNL isn't going to do it great, because I think that SNL has had to deal with this for, the last, whatever it is, 20, 25 years, when all the late night shows started to get to all their jokes be first. And it's like they eventually adapted. And now I think they're going to have to adapt to this stuff too.
They absolutely can do it better. They absolutely did not do it better this time. It would be my point.
Okay. I'll take that. Bill, you want to get in on this discussion?
I get where Andrew's coming from. I'm not quite as harsh on it, and I was kind of surprised at how much backlash there was online about this. I think if you just take it at face value, how well Chloe did this impression, understandably, of a Muppet, but still a very famous Muppet with a certain intonation, and she did a really good job with that, even the facial expressions. But yeah, Andrew's right as far as being able to be at that pinnacle of a moment. Unless it happened Saturday morning, you're not going to catch the zeitgeist, and I think that's kind of a fine line that they always kind of have to find their way with. And again, I don't understand why there was quite as much backlash, but I would have preferred to see maybe Heidi at the Weekend Update desk as opposed to this.
One more point I would make, John. The comparison I have is Kyle Mooney's Baby Yoda, which is like
the most that they've ever done a character in the history of SNL.
Which has never been a favorite of mine, but I give them credit for having some sort of twist on it that, even though Baby Yoda is so popular, that I didn't think I would see going into Saturday night. Whereas the only twist they put on this, which got a joke out of me, was sort of like the Rock is coming, he's gonna come in and host, so he had to come test or whatever. So that was the one thing twist on it. I just think it was too much of like, just this is what happened. There's no twist to it.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Okay, so anything else on the episode that I want to talk about? I definitely want to bring up Bowen Yang's Yao Ming, which was just hilarious. This was great.
Yes, Yao is here. Hello.
A little bit of I think Bowen Yao Ming was from the real world, like Pete Davidson's Biden, because they both had the same like background vocal that they put on that.
The timeline you are all living in is about to collapse.
I think they were from the same part of the universe, the multiverse. So I definitely did enjoy that. I would also say always a very classic line from Jost and Shay when we get to hear something like this on Weekend Updates.
Seen here losing the battle with his breakfast burrito.
About Mitch McConnell. Always great. And then the other thing I would say that really made me laugh, and again, this is just, it's near the end of the podcast, so maybe I can say this. This line from Andrew Dismukes.
Me, a kid who pees in the sink.
I have met that kid before. I know that kid, and I have been friends with that kid, and that kid is weird. So it's just, I thought I would bring that up as some funny moments from the episode. So really overall, I did enjoy this episode. I also want to bring up some charts. So there was a lot of debate about the monologue. This is the first time we had a cast member in a monologue. Bill, were you happy to see a cast member in the monologue?
I was, even though Kate was chewing the scenery so hard, I could feel the bite marks. But I enjoyed this. I'm glad the solo monologues are over officially. I know there was some debate about Billy's episode, but I prefer when they mix it up. We don't need 10 Q&A monologues in a row. We don't need 10 solo monologues in a row. So I did enjoy this. I always enjoy hearing Kate sing, and I think they played well off of each other.
Okay. Haskell, were you happy to see a cast member come into the monologue for the first time this season?
Yeah, pretty much everything that Bill said. It's just nice to switch things up and get back to some sort of rotation.
Okay. I did ask our Instagram audience, I said, do you prefer solo monologues or do you prefer when a cast member comes in? And very 50-50. We got a 49% solo monologues and we got 51% with cast members. So really, it seems like the audience is somewhat indifferent to this. So I guess it depends on the quality of the monologue overall. So nothing statistically significant here, but just thought I would bring up our Instagram audience's perception on that. Okay. We also asked for episode MVP. We always do MVP votes on the roundtables. If you want to vote in our MVP discussion, please head over to our Instagram stories every Monday afternoon to vote on that. And we will bring up the results on the roundtable. Bill, let me ask you, give me your top 3 for MVP votes this week.
I think number 1, without a doubt, is Chris Redd. I think after that, you've got Dismukes at number 2 and Heidi at number 3.
Okay, so you said Chris and then Dismukes and then Heidi. Haskell, what about you?
Bill, so let me change it. So Chris Redd has to go first. Dismukes has to go too. And so I'll just switch it up. I'll give Kate a vote because it was, I know it wasn't her first episode back, but it's nice, I feel like she was in the rotation this week without kind of dominating the minutes. So she'll get my 3rd vote.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to say, Nicole, collects all the results for this particular one. This was really interesting. For the first time, the upper tier of people in this in the MVP votes was just so strong compared to everybody else. I think it was about 87% of all the votes were distributed between the top 3, if I understand correctly. And there were more Chris Redd #1 votes than any other #1 we've had so far this season. So great night for Chris. So I'll bring up those MVP numbers right here. And here we go. #1 is Chris Redd with 59.42% MVP of the week. Kate McKinnon comes in at 15.94. Ariana DeBose coming in at 11.59%. So obviously a lot of Ariana fans out there. Just Mukes, you both had a #2, comes in at #4 with 2.9%. Sarah Sherman in 5th with 1.45%. So obviously Ariana pushing Andrew down. Otherwise, Haskell would have had it correct. No Heidi Gardner on this list, which is a little surprising, but that is our MVP voting for this week. Okay, gentlemen, I have held in everything I could about the Ariana. I said everything I could about Ariana DeBose and the Bleachers episode. I've held it in for all through the hot take show for most of it, most of the roundtable. Let's talk about Will Forte coming in to host Saturday Night Live. So, Bill, are you excited?
Wait, who's hosting?
Will Forte is coming in to host Saturday Night Live next week. How excited are you?
Oh, I'm so excited. And what, I mean, you guys will talk about this during the week, but incredible that every cast member from season 32 will now have hosted. That's other than the 2 that are still part of the show. That's amazing. And what does that speak to as far as, the amazing ability of that group of people and, the amazing people that came before them that never had that chance, whether by luck or tragedy. I think that's pretty incredible. And that Forte's the last one is kind of surprising, but well-deserved. Let's see lots of recurring characters, not just MacGruber.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I have long argued. I mean, people have heard me on many podcasts say that season 32 to me is the greatest season in the history of the show. Obviously, Daryl's still the voice of the show, and Keenan's still on the show. But just the fact that every single cast member has had such a significant role, both on the show and off the show, it's just to me so amazing. So happy for Will to come in. I know you mentioned recurring characters, Bill. Any in particular you're looking forward to seeing this Saturday?
Greg Stink, hands down.
Then we get Jason.
Which means yes, exactly.
Okay, for sure. Anyone else? Any underrated ones that you could think of? Any sketches that you'd like to see reprised?
Not off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody. I could do without the sex predator, who I can't think of his name. Jeff Montgomery, is that?
Oh, come on! Oh man, Jeff Montgomery's the best. Yeah, yes, but the original Jeff Montgomery sketch, one of my all-time favorite sketches for sure. Okay, Haskell, what are your thoughts on Will Forte coming in to host the show?
We talked a lot about that season 32. I was in the 6th grade for that season, and that is one of the that's kind of the age. That's when I got hooked, was those early middle school years. So like a lot of people who listen to this podcast, like a lot of people who are on this podcast, that core cast is what I consider my cast. So it's just I remember the first time each one of them came back to host, and it felt like almost like a little reunion. Even if nobody shows up, it's a little reunion. The things I'm excited to see, I actually am kind of excited to see MacGruber back in sketch form. We had the movie, now we have the series on Peacock. I'm excited to see him actually back in that sketch. I'm excited to see a sketch that hopefully recurs through the episode. I feel like that's kind of a lost art that they haven't done in a while. I'm excited to see who takes on I would love to see either Chloe Fineman or Heidi Gardner take on the role as kind of his, the Vicky St. Elmo role. And we want to see one of the dumbest all-time sketches that I absolutely unironically love is the Falconer. Bring it back just for the sake of bringing it back.
Oh, the Falconer was so amazing. It would be so funny to bring him back, now, especially like during the times that we're living in. Such a great sketch. I mean, I will say, sketches or characters like Hamilton, who I know is like the most, I don't know if you ever saw this. If you look it up on Late Night with Seth Meyers, he's talked about how Will Forte did Hamilton at his wedding, like the super alt-right, super racist guy. And just the fact that Will is doing it is just he's so funny with it. Clancy T. Baccarat that he used to do, where he used to sing about Model T cars and spaceships. That one I would bring up. Tim Calhoun, my first memory of Really, one of my first memories of Saturday Night Live was watching Will Forte do Tim Calhoun. I think it was all the way back on the Senator John McCain episode in 2002, turning it on to Weekend Update and seeing Tim Calhoun come on. And I know some people were saying, oh, you can't do Tim Calhoun now because there's so many, presidential candidates that are weirder than Tim. But, Will just has an amazing ability to play weird in a way that is just so funny and so incredible. And I just can't wait to see what we're going to get to see from him. Even if he doesn't come back and do too many recurring stuff, I won't be too disappointed because I just think that the atmosphere that Will Forte provides to 8H is unlike anybody probably at the show. I remember hearing about a cast member once that was so hungry and then ordered dinner, and it took so long to come in New York City traffic. And when the food came, Will Forte took the food and dropped it out the window. So just the fact that he loves to mess with the cast members, he loves to have fun at the show. I think what we're in store for, obviously not to hype it up too much, I think is going to be an incredible episode. And if you'd like to hear me talk about my experience meeting Will Forte a few years ago, I spoke about that a little bit on the Hot Take Show, but just you could not have a nicer guy. I mean, there's some people some SNL cast members, some of whom we had on tonight on the show, really nice people. You may have heard stories about others who are not, but Will is one of the nicest people to ever be at 8H. So just very, very happy for him that he gets to come back and host the show. Bill Haskell, anything else on Will Forte or Moneskin, as in now I've heard that's how you pronounce it? Nope, you good? Okay, so let's talk about what's coming up here at the SNL Network this week. So thrilled that we got to share our 100th episode with all of you. I hope you will join us later on in the week for a patron feedback show. We'll be back on Wednesday night with 2 lucky patrons who get to join us on the show and answer SNL questions. We will put up a form on social media tomorrow, so make sure to send in your SNL questions and we will answer them on the show. We'll also talk about what's happening in SNL social media. There was some fun back and forth with Eric Adams and Chris Redd. We'll talk about that on Wednesday as well. Join us on Thursday night for Hollywood Dish, where Nicole and Rebecca will break down everything happening in pop culture so you know what SNL will be talking about next Saturday night. And next Saturday night, join us right after the Will Forte and Moneskin episode. I promise I will not be too giddy. I will be an objective analyst. I promise. Okay. That is what's coming up this week. And obviously, if you missed our Hot Take Show, it was a really fun one this particular week. Bill Kenney, where can the listeners reach out to you? Thank you for joining us on our 100th episode.
Well, just like the first, it's an honor to be here for the 100th, John. Thanks for having me. You can follow me on Instagram or Twitter at BKLove73.
Absolutely. And just so great to get to have met you and to have you on the show so many times in the first 100. Looking forward to all the future podcasts we get to do together. Haskell, thank you so much for joining us. Where can listeners reach out to you?
Yeah, thanks again for having me. Like Bill said at the beginning, can't wait for the next 100. And great to be a part of this with Bill, one of the best people to do this podcast with. So much knowledge about the history of SNL. Follow me on Twitter at Andrew Haskell. I have upcoming stand-up dates all over New England. And read my stuff at the bostonaccent.com, little website that pokes some fun at all of us good people up here in New England.
Yeah, thank you, Haskell, so much for joining us. And thank you to Jeff Richards, Siobhan Fallon Hogan, and Gary Kroeger for joining us for a segment for this episode. So wonderful to get to hear from them. And, as we wrap up our 100 episode, I just really want to one more time reiterate our thanks to the listeners, the patrons of the SNL Network who are keeping us going, and all of the podcasters who have made all of this possible. This came from an idea one day, and really it's all because of all of you that we are continuing to have fun talking about Saturday Night Live. So I hope that you continue to, tell your friends about the podcast. Hope they can come and join our little community that we have here and our love for Saturday Night Live. So I appreciate everybody who joined us in the chat tonight. For Bill Haskell and myself, Jon Schneider, and all of us at the SNL Network, we will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.